Reports been coming in from all over. Dominion worlds overrun. Outposts destroyed. A lot more dead boys out there. Warriors.
Death is the fate of all warriors. A fate we too may soon embrace.
Not if I have anything to say about it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Giant Grant Games, and I am here to answer the question, is it possible to beat Starcraft 2, Legacy of the Void, without losing a unit? By now, I assume that you know the rules, and so do I, so let's just jump right into it. Legacy of the Void starts off with a bang. I'm given an enormous Protoss army and told to smash through the Zerg to reclaim our homeworld. Unfortunately, the majority of the units I'm given are Zealots, who have a tendency to die. After retreating the Zealots, my army is significantly less impressive. The Zerg defenses are intense. I use Blink Stalkers to pull enemies into smaller, more approachable groups. Fortunately, the starting area of the mission has an immobile mothership and some photon cannons to help me fight. The first group goes down without much issue. After the first group, I'm rewarded with 4 Colossus. They dish out damage quickly to clumped up Zerg forces and outrange spine crawlers and other static defenses. There are 4 Zerg hives on the map. When destroyed, I'm rewarded with Zealot reinforcements. No man left behind means I will be clearing the entire map for a useless reward. The main objective of the mission is to secure 3 warp conduits to reinforce the attack. After rescuing a few immortals, killing another 2 hives, and a reinforcement point, I reach the final warp conduit. Surprising nobody besides Zeratul, they're a hybrid on Aiur. These hybrid go down easily to my large army, but in general, hybrid are going to be a constant source of frustration during the run. They're some of the strongest units in the game, and often my army will be significantly weaker than it is right now. After cleaning up the final hybrid, the mission is over. In total, I was given 127 Zealots and 32 units I could actually use. The Growing Shadow is the first building mission of the campaign. After a short jog with my Stalkers, I unlock a base and start building. I have 2 units available to build, the Mobile Stalker and the Zealot, who will be avoided as much as possible throughout the run. The combination of speed, a ranged attack, and blink makes a Stalker an excellent unit for this challenge. Whenever a Stalker loses its shields, blink it to the back and let him regenerate. There are 3 void pylons around the map. Capturing each brings me a reinforcement wave of Stalkers. This is the type of mission where a Deathless run shines. The Templar base is supposed to be difficult to breach, but my robust Stalker squad doesn't care. After a short segment of blinking around with Zeratul, the mission is over. The mission Spear of Adun gives me access to the Spear of Adun, a customizable bar of abilities that can be called down for an energy cost. Most abilities cost 75 energy, and energy regenerates at about 25 per minute. The first ability I gain is Deploy Pylon. To complement it, I also gain the ability to warp in Protoss units from gateways. Unfortunately, I don't gain any new combat unit, so it's Stalker time again. The objective of Spear of Adun is super unique. There are 4 creep-covered power cells scattered around the map that need to be destroyed. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. After gaining control of each cell, the enemy sends a powerful attack wave against me. I don't want to deal with this, so I decide to clear most of each point, and then finish all 4 objectives at the same time. The objective of Sky Shield is super unique. There are 4 platform stabilizers scattered around the map that need to be secured. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. The catch is that this time, I'm on the clock. Timed missions are the most difficult for Deathless runs. If I can sit back and build up my forces, a mission is generally pretty easy. Legacy of the Void has a ton of timed missions. Unit selection in Legacy of the Void works differently than in other campaigns. There are 10 unit archetypes unlocked throughout the run. I can have 1 unit at a time from each archetype, but can switch at will between missions. Right now, I only have access to the Melee Warrior and Ranged Warrior archetype. Melee Warriors would die, and the Dragoon is too much of a liability for a Deathless run. I'm getting a little bit sick of building mass Stalkers. I quickly clear to the closest objective to build myself a buffer of time. I also unlocked the Orbital Bombardment ability on the Topbar. It's an ability to destroy high-priority targets and entrenched positions. It's crucial to the early parts of the run. Finally, there are 3 EMP scramblers around the map that drain shields. Destroying each rewards Solarite, a resource that will be used for the rest of the run to improve my Topbar, allowing me to equip more powerful abilities. I wait for a long time before engaging to build my forces up. Blink allows me to dodge the powerful Raven secret missiles. After the Ravens have spent their energy, defensive blinking is more than enough to secure the remaining points. Brothers in Arms unlocks a new class of units, the Immortal, a heavy-hitting, high-durability unit who can actually fight back against the hybrid. The mission is normally pretty easy. I have 2 Terran allies who defend against a Terran opponent. Occasionally, there's a disruption pulse that stuns all Terrans, both enemies and allies. During the pulse, 2 waves of hybrids attack one of my allies. The Terran allies also try to attack, but in Legacy of the Void, I'm taking allied deaths very seriously. I start my construction project. I completely wall my allies in, and they can't send their attack waves anymore. I try to incorporate my wall into their defenses so my pylons won't be killed by the enemy attackers. The first few disruption events are easy. The hybrid count is low, and the shield battery is enough to keep my Immortals alive. The Immortal is the only unit robust enough to take on this many hybrid without dying, so I'm stuck in a fairly monotone army. My allies keep building attack waves, but they can't send them out to fight. I have no worries about them being able to defend. After maxing out and marching across the map comes one of the scariest enemies in the run, the Hybrid Dominator. Did I say one? Dominators fire energy bolts that kill any unit besides the Immortal in one shot, and leave the Immortals almost dead. They also have Psystorm and a powerful ranged attack. This fight is miserable, and took me almost an hour of attempts to get right. The success was mostly luck. Next up is the planet Shakuros. I unlock the Dark Templar unit and the Solar Lance Topbar ability. Solar Lance's targeting makes it a flexible ability that I'll be using often during the run. The objective of Amon's Reach is super unique. There are 4 creep-covered launch bays scattered around the map that need to be destroyed. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. Because the mission is designed to showcase to the Dark Templar, it's designed for even casual players to be able to beat without losing a unit. Use the Solar Lance to snipe detectors, and the Dark Templar have free reign over the objective. Last Stand is another freebie mission. Defend a temple until 1.5 billion Zerg reach the planet. Although it takes a while, there's no reason to build a single unit. Photon cannons, shield batteries, and Nexus Overcharge are more than enough to breeze through this mission. Every run has its freebie planet, and for Legacy of the Void, it was Shakuros. Unsealing the Past is another timed mission. I have to reach the objective before the Tal'Darim use their giant death laser to destroy it. I unlock the Sentry, who can spend energy to restore allied shields. This sounds nice on paper, but the Sentry itself is fragile and won't be used much during the run. But for now, they can act as support for my Immortals. Sentries and Immortals are not nimble units, and microing them can get clunky at times. Just because I'm racing against the giant death laser doesn't mean I can't engage in some healthy cooperation. The biggest problem on this mission are the attack waves against my base. They're rough, but leaving things at home would slow me down too much. I had to let them kill my buildings while Photon Overcharge slowly whittled them down. At the end of the mission, things get rough. Enemy defenses ramp up exponentially. Warp prisms fly in to power enemy defenses, and I'm reminded how truly horrible the Sentry's damage output is. The final room has a Wrathwalker, a Colossus variant that can kill almost anything in the game in 2 shots. It has to be eliminated quickly. Once the Wrathwalker is down, the mission is over. After reaching Ulnar, I unlock one of my favorite units in the game, the Phoenix. There are 5 locks on Temple of Unification. If either faction stands on a lock for more than a few seconds, they gain control of it. The goal of the mission is to control all 5 locks. The Phoenix is a great unit here. Defenses around the locks are fairly heavy, and this nimble flyer can easily circumvent difficult areas. Frustratingly, the enemies are constantly sending attack forces to recapture locks. Normally, I would station a garrison to defend, but the potential of losing defenders is too high. Instead, the Phoenix have to constantly run around recapturing locks. The bonus objective on this mission is to kill a Titanic Warp Prism. It's well defended, but all the running around gave me time to build up my forces. Eventually, my army is large enough to split into 2. I take one squadron of Phoenix south to reclaim the locks while the second defends up top. And after 22 minutes, the game of Whack-A-Mole is finally over. Initially, I thought the infinite cycle would be easy. I'm given control of Kerrrigan and Artanis, and told that if they die I lose. Sounds perfect for a deathless run. But what I forgot is that the duo's only reliable source of area damage is Kerrigan's spawn baneling power, which I can't use. This complicates things more than I thought it would. Artanis has a dash attack that stuns and a heal, while Kerrrigan only has kinetic blast. The small spawning constructs that are normally killed instantly put out a surprisingly large amount of damage. The goal of the Infinite Cycle is to progress through 3 sections to reach the temples at the end. Waves of enemies spawn, and it's important to kinetic blast dropships instantly, otherwise enemy forces will get out of control. Killing Hybrid is slower than normal, but Artanis' healing makes the fight trivial. Killing enemies before they can warp in reduces the difficulty significantly. Once Hybrid Reavers start spawning, Artanis can't out-heal their damage and has to kite. Halfway through part 2 is where the lack of AoE really starts to hurt. The third segment is timed, but the timer isn't particularly strict. I pull parts of the final group outside of the last room to make the fight easier. The final enemy is a hybrid behemoth who's incredibly powerful, but not very fast, and can also be stunned. After taking him down, the mission ends. I'm given a powerful new spellcaster to the Protoss arsenal, the High Templar. Due to having 80 HP, the High Templar will be retiring to the back of my base after this short section. After I get to my base, it's time to complain about Harbinger of Oblivion. I hate this mission. The main objective of the mission is very unique. There are 4 void crystals on the map that need to be eliminated. Each crystal is defended by an increasingly strong group of hybrid and support units from all 3 races. I'm also given a completely useless AI Kerrrigan who serves no purpose in the mission other than complaining and dying. At the back of Kerrigan's base, a void rift slowly consumes her base. It's impossible to keep all allies alive on this mission. There is an achievement for the mission to win before Kerrrigan loses more than 3 hives, so I use this as a benchmark for keeping my ally alive. The beginning of the mission isn't bad. Dark Templar clean up the low number of enemies defending the first crystal. The second crystal is defended well from one angle, but laughably undefended from another. After the second crystal goes down, problems start to arise. The final 2 crystals are defended by hybrid dominators whose plasma blast kills my units in one shot. Combined with defensive carriers, void rays, ravens, and battle cruisers means I'm in for a frustrating time. I use Dark Templar. Their Shadow Fury ability allows me to avoid plasma blast, but this means I can't hit flyers. After burning all of my Spear of Adun energy to neutralize the flyers, there's one final objective, but I have a problem. Time. I need Spear of Adun energy if I want to neutralize the flyers, but I can't let another of Kerrigan's hives die. Now, there are ravens at the enemy garrison as well. Ravens are annoying for 2 reasons. First, they reveal all of my Dark Templar, and second, they fire a Hunter-Seeker missile that forces me to retreat, wasting precious time. I spent about half an hour attempting to bust the final base. Nothing I do is working. I just don't have the tools available to successfully finish the mission. Eventually, I restarted. It's cheesing time. I changed my Dark Templar from the traditional Nerazim faction to the Avenger. Generally, the Avenger is considered the worst Dark Templar by far, but its Death Recall ability is perfect for this mission. Once I had enough Dark Templar, I simply clicked on the crystal and waited. Hybrid would activate Death Recall, but that's fine with me. The first crystal went down easily. I still have 3 crystals left, but I decided that conventional tactics against the final crystals wouldn't work. I ran a flyer through the corruption to the top of the map. Once I had vision, I started using Solar Lance every time it was off cooldown to attack the objective. It took 4 shots to kill, which is a lot, but it was worth it to avoid the hassle of killing the final base. Once my army was large enough and Death Recall was off cooldown, I clicked on the objective. Maybe sniping detectors here would have been correct, but I was feeling lazy. Using Solar Lance on the objective worked so well, I made another Corsair and did it again. The reason I can get away with this strategy is because the enemy sends very few attack waves, and they only have a single source of detection. If the enemy brought more detection, this strategy would not be viable. With one final triumphant charge towards the crystal, Death Recall DTs can retire, knowing that they've served the Protoss well. One of my favorite things in challenge runs is when something that generally is accepted to be terrible ends up being completely overpowered due to weird circumstances. Good job, Death Recall DTs. As soon as I can go to the planet Slain, I do. The unit I get there is incredible, and I fully intend to abuse it as the difficulty of Legacy of the Void spikes. Steps of the Right flips back and forth between 2 states. First, it's a normal map, where the Tal'Darim Protoss occasionally send attack waves against my base. Once the Terrazine fog sets in, waves of phantom enemies from all races attack me. The phantom enemies are significantly weaker than their real-world counterparts, but they can still easily kill my stuff if I get careless. I'm given the Void Ray, a flying attack ship who gains power over time as it attacks. Flyers in StarCraft 2 can stack on top of each other, meaning as long as I avoid area damage, I can create a giant ball of lasers that melts everything in range. After the fog subsides, I move my army out. The objective of Step of the Right is super unique. There are 4 Guardians of Malash scattered around the map that need to be destroyed. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. The edges of the map are basically empty, meaning the Void Rays can travel easily from objective to objective without being attacked. After sniping an objective, I move back to defend the fog. I repeat this process a few more times, and the mission ends without problem. The Rite of Rak'Shir is a cool tug of war. Alarak and Malash battle in the center. Both the enemy and I can psionically support our champion by being nearby. There are 2 pits. Whoever pushes their opponent into the pit first is the winner. The Void Ray deals bonus damage to armored targets. The large majority of Protoss anti-air is armored. I intend to abuse this until I go back to having Zerg and Terran enemies. I build a fortification near my pit, so I can have time before Alarak is pushed in. The enemy stacks up tight when pushing the objective. Solar Lance punishes them. There are 3 elementals around the map as a bonus objective. They do stun my units, but they don't really do much. The only scary enemies are hybrid dominators, who I have to let blast my cannons before I can move in to clean up. After clearing the bonus objective, it's time for the death push. Protoss don't really have anything that can stop 25 Void Rays. I save shield overcharge for the hybrid at the end, and it's a free win. Void Rays are pretty good. The Carrier is my favorite unit in StarCraft 2. A massive capital ship who launches a swarm of interceptors to overwhelm its foes. It's really a shame the interceptors can die, so the unit is completely useless. Templar's charge is really cool. My base is on a platform that can be moved around the map. Once my base runs out of money, I simply click a button and move it somewhere else. Each platform has enemies on it that I have to clear out before my base arrives. Because the Carrier isn't viable, I'm forced into Void Rays again. They are effective. Shield overcharge give Void Rays enough time to charge up their lasers. The enemy attacks against my base are infrequent and weak. Honestly, at this point I'm getting a little bit bored amassing Void Rays, but they're doing the trick. After targeting down the objectives, it's on to a more interesting mission. In Unsealing the Past, I unlock another of my favorite units, the Colossus. It does damage to ground units in a perpendicular line and can walk up cliffs. The objective of the mission is a pseudo-escort. The megalith moves automatically from point to point, and it's my job to clear the path. Ideally, I'm always a few steps ahead of the megalith so it doesn't die. The map is made up of thin, winding canyons with Zerg on all sides. I make stalkers to supplement the Colossus. The blink ability means that both can move up and down cliffs freely. Honestly, I was just really tired of moving Void Rays, and I wanted to micro a bit. Occasionally, the megalith catches up to me. It doesn't hit hard, but it's decently bulky. Being able to move my entire army up and down cliffs feels really cool and gives me tactical flexibility. Between the 3rd and 4th points, there are caves that are spawning infinite numbers of Zerg. Knocking down the rocks and sealing the caves is very important. The final point is in the middle of the Zerg's primary hive cluster. Nidus worms constantly spawn, and the choke point makes it a great time to practice my Blink Stalker micro. After the hive has been fully cleared, there's nothing to do but wait for the megalith and massage my pained wrists. Purification is another fun mission. I spawn in the middle of a large space station infected by Zerg. There are 4 quadrants that each have 3 null circuits in them. Whenever 3 circuits in a quadrant are cleared, an enormous allied army of Protoss spawns and attacks heavily fortified Zerg bases in the corner. Wait, that's bad. I'm gonna have to get a bit creative. The Tempest is generally a bad capital ship. It has a long-range, medium-damage attack that fires very slowly. This makes them great in this specific mission though. The terrain is very hilly, with many ramps and cliffs that the Tempest can abuse, striking their target from an unreachable position. I use the Tempest to slowly clear 2 of 3 null circuits in each quadrant. Once there's only 1 null circuit remaining in each quadrant, I split my Tempest into 4 groups. With the power of my new Time Stop ultimate ability, I can briefly disable the defenders while I break all 4 circuits simultaneously. If my allies never spawn, the mission can never get them killed. Now that I've recruited the Tal'Darim and the Purifiers to my side, it's time to invade Aiur. Again. Templar's Return has 3 distinct portions to it. First, Vorazun and Alarak move together throughout the map. The mission fails if either dies, so there's not much to talk about here. The next portion has Karax and Talendar together. Talondar is a brutal melee attacker, and Kerrrigan can mind control enemy robots. The goal is to build a big army and engage a large hybrid force at the end. Knowing how strong the enemies are at the end, I make sure to reclaim every robotic unit on the map. Of the required 60 army supply you need to fight the final section, I ended up with 114. Not bad. Kerrrigan spawns photon cannons to tank, and the hybrid are wiped out. The third section is the most difficult one by far. I'm given Artanis, some vanguards, and zealots. The objective is to clear to the end as fast as possible, while a blue wall of death follows. Generally, I would want to put the zealots in the back and clear with the good units, but I can't due to the tight timing of the mission. I try to have Artanis soak so the zealots don't die. As I clear through the caves, I encounter some allied forces attacking Zerg bases. Once the bases are down, they join me. My army is large enough now that I can leave the spinny zealots behind and still clear at a decent speed. There's another encampment. This time I'm rewarded with Dark Templar. The DTs and Artanis can safely take down forward Nidus worms before they spawn too much. The final section has caves spawning infinite numbers of Zerg. Dark Templar collapse the rocks to seal the caves, and the mission is over. The objective of the host is super unique. There are 5 void shards scattered around the map that need to be destroyed. Each is guarded by a progressively stronger force of enemies. The first shard goes down pretty easily, gaining me a fast expansion. That's good because I need a large army fast. The enemy constantly sends attack waves of mixed unit types. Mismanaging an attack while my army is across the map is an easy way to die. After grabbing a couple Colossus, I transition into Adept and Sentry production. The Adepts are decent against everything, and the Sentries keep my shields up. I don't think this mission would be possible without Time Stop. I approach the second objective and use it to snipe the Void Shard. Once I max out with a Mothership, I snipe the third Void Shard with Time Stop as well. I was looking for opportunities to do objective damage without resorting to Time Stop, but they never came. The enemy defenses on the map are just too strong. This means I have to wait 6 minutes in between every push. The Time Stop strategy is consistent and reliable, but it's not the most interesting thing in the world. The final mission before the epilogue is Salvation, a 30-minute defense mission. There are 3 lanes to defend. Vorzun, Alarak, and Kerrrigan each position their forces in front of a lane. It's not possible to guarantee that none of the allied forces die. I don't even think it'd be possible to keep track of it. So I decided there'd be 2 conditions for the mission. Number 1, Vorzun, Alarak, and Kerrrigan must survive. And number 2, each of the commander's Nexi must also survive. There's an achievement for this Nexus surviving, so it's easy to keep track of. The early stages of the mission are about building up an economy, while relatively minor attack waves strike your allies in succession. They're nothing to worry about. Kerrrigan has a passive aura that dramatically increases nearby structures' production speed. I had no idea about this until my stream chat told me about it. A 5-minute Mothership is easily able to burn through early attack waves on her own. I leave energizers at each allied base. The buff that they provide helps me clean up enemies, and allows me to move between defense points more quickly. The Protoss send the Golden Armada at me in a progressively more intimidating chunks. My decision to go Void Rays on this mission is almost wholly because I need to beat the Skytoss armies quickly and efficiently. The Topbar abilities are the main reason that the run so far has been possible. Throughout the mission, the Spear of Adun slowly loses these abilities, making the fight significantly more difficult. Vorzun is the most resilient of the allied commanders. Her stealth means that all I have to do is snipe detectors and she can manage on her own. Kerrrigan, on the other hand, is incredibly weak. His units die quickly. I spend a lot of focus keeping him alive. Alarak has a tendency to charge into the middle of enemy forces and get himself killed. I had to trap him inside a box in order to protect him from himself. I eventually left the Mothership with Vorzun to the north, while the Void Rays would move between the other bases to defend. I know that Purifier Beam is the weakest of the ultimate skills, but it looks so freaking sweet. At the 50% mark, I split my Void Rays into 2 separate armies. Having 3 independent fleets allows me to respond to crisis much more quickly before my allies are overwhelmed. I use my remaining cooldowns whenever the Golden Armada spawns. The large bursts of damage from Protoss capital ships are very dangerous. After maxing out, I'm in pure photon cannon production mode. At 66%, my final defensive cooldown is destroyed. I need to make sure photon cannons are taking the shots from now on. The Zerg attack from all 3 sides at once. I can't micro every side. Luckily, mass Void Rays don't really need micro. The attack waves are absolutely insane at this point. Mutalisk, Carrier, Tempest, Mothership, Scout is a very difficult composition to deal with when I don't have my abilities. The cannons and voids hold strong though, and the mission is finally finished. Now, let's take the fight to Amon. There are 3 missions in the Legacy of the Void epilogue. In each mission you play as a different race, first as Protoss, then Terran, and finishing up the story as Zerg. Unfortunately, I don't get to customize the unit upgrades and powers I'm given, making things a bit more difficult. In a normal playthrough, Into the Void is one of my favorite missions in all of Starcraft 2. The Protoss, Zerg, and Terran forces all push together in an enormous map, slowly taking territory from the hybrid until they finally beat their leader. Unfortunately, Deathless runs are not a great time for a 40-minute slog across the map. Before I plan an attack, though, there's something else to take care of. Much better. Now, back to business. I start building Phoenix out of my Stargate and getting air attack upgrades, and I never stop. Ever. Eventually I hit a critical mass of Phoenix and head up the side of the map. The units and upgrades I'm given are a weird mix of useful and useless abilities. Fortunately, I'm given time stop, and the final boss can be attacked by air units. The Phoenix swoop in and easily finish the mission. Looking back on the StarCraft 2 Deathless runs, there are a few standout missions that took quite a bit of time and effort to solve. The final mission of Wings of Liberty and Crucible in Heart of the Swarm both stand out as missions where I had to spend over 2 hours perfecting my defense against overwhelming odds. They did nothing to help me prepare for the Essence of Eternity. This mission took me over 4.5 hours of attempts to solve. It is, without a doubt, the most difficult Deathless mission in StarCraft 2. I'm playing as the Terran in this mission, and much to the Terran style, it's a defense mission where I'm supposed to hunker down with siege tanks and defend. To the south and east are Protoss and Zerg bases, manned by Artanis and Zagara. Kerrigan is being taught the secrets of the Kamehameha wave by a space manatee. Every enemy wave has some immensely powerful units. Battlecruisers, carriers, broodlords, the works. Kerrigan can shoot them down, but when Kerrigan is fighting, the mission timer stalls out. For the rule about keeping allies alive, I went with a reasonable, heroes have to live and nexuses have to stay alive. This is where the mission runs into its first snag. Considering he's the hierarch of the Protoss, I'm impressed at how terrible Artanis' AI is. This is what it looks like on the first attack wave against Artanis. He literally kills himself. This is going to be rough. Luckily, Zagara is actually competent and is able to fend for herself at the beginning. The issue with Artanis is that he can dash through buildings. Unlike Alarak, who needs proper pathing in order to use his dash attack, Artanis will move through any barricade you construct as soon as he sees an enemy and is in range. In order to solve this problem, I had to make a fancy trap. The Depot Canyon has a proper exit, and when Artanis sees the nearby planetary fortress be attacked, he snaps into action and heads out. I raise the depots and trap him. Now he's in Depot Prison. If Depot Prison is far enough away, Artanis will never be aggroed by another enemy again. Now all I have to do is worry about the rest of the mission. I don't know the specifics about how this works, but I'm convinced that observing a battle in StarCraft 2 changes its results. There are many times in this mission, enemies would attack multiple places at once, and without touching anything, the battle where my screen was located would go fine, and the battle where my screen was not would result in repairing SCVs dying. If I were to reload and to move my screen to the second fight, where things went poorly, then that fight would go well, and the fight that's now off-screen would result in SCVs dying. I don't know how this works. I don't know if the computer takes some form of shorthand when it comes to processing off-screen battles. I don't know if it applies only to the campaign or everywhere, but I do believe this effect exists to some extent. The remainder of the mission was brute force and luck. Losing to random enemies for no reason, reloading, finding a solution to each and every battle, relying on luck. It was horrible. If you want to do a Deathless StarCraft 2 run, I give you permission to skip the epilogue. The final epilogue mission of Legacy of the Void is probably the most universally hated mission in StarCraft. All you do is fight a bunch of rocks. In theory, there's a bunch of people on the map to go and engage, but there's not really any point. Particularly in this run, where things just die and it's a liability. The best way to play the mission is to build up a bunch of Mutalisks, max out, never use Xel'Naga Kerrigan, and attack some rocks. It really is a disappointing and frustrating end to the trilogy. And if that's not enough, it doesn't have a score screen either. I hate this mission. Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this journey. It turns out it is possible to beat all of StarCraft 2 without losing a unit. Who knew? Well, not all of it yet. Coming up next is going to be a mini episode where we go through Nova Covert Ops, finishing off that bonus campaign, and then we're going to move to Warcraft 3. Both of those are going to be a fun time, and if you don't want to miss them, please subscribe. I'll see you then. Peace.